Hello all you train fans out there, and welcome to my 2020 collection video. It's been about a year since I did my last one, and since then, my collection has grown quite a bit, so I think it's about time I did another to update you on my collection. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So to start, we're going to do all of my steam locomotives first. So here's the first steam locomotive I've ever gotten. Still works. This is an 040 tender engine Union Pacific. I don't know the exact class, but I do know it was made by Model Power, and it still runs very well. So this one has a bit of sentimental value, being the first steam locomotive. I believe this was my second or third. Again, I don't really remember the order that well. But it's another Union Pacific, 060, and this one runs perfectly. Like, I've never had any problems with it of all my years of owning it. And this is a manual model, so it's pretty nice. Next one is a bit older. This is about the third steam locomotive, I believe, of my collection, of course. So this is a New York Central Hudson. This is definitely one of my favorites. I just love the design of this thing. Very iconic. Then after that, going from a quite big one to a really small one I can hold in my hand, I have the DeWitt Clinton. This one comes in a Bachmann starter set. I don't know if you can buy it individually. This one's pretty neat. I mainly got it for the novelty of having such a small little locomotive. I always love taking that one out around the layout. After that, we have the SP Daylight. This one I got at a train show a few years back. Runs decently, though the radiuses on my curves are a bit too sharp for it, so I don't run it that often. But again, another iconic American streamliner. After that, we have this 440, I think that's what you would call them. This is a very classic, I like to call it a Civil War era locomotive. This is actually my only Pennsylvania Railroad thing that I own. And I don't think these are what the Pennsylvania Railroad is really known for. After that, we have one of my favorite locomotives of all time. This is the Norfolk Western 611. Got this one on eBay, I think just about a year ago actually. Another very iconic streamliner. I like to call these three my American Streamliner trilogy. Very unfortunate that there's no New York Central Hudson still around today. And after that, we have another 040 switcher. This is another Model Power, Chesapeake and Ohio 23. I don't know the exact class. These ones are kind of hard to identify. If they even exist in real life. Could be fictional. Well, those are all my American steam locomotives. So after that, we have some of my British steam locomotives. I have just 4 of these. So this is a Genty, a 3F. This one's a very old Hornby model. But it still runs, makes a lot of noise, but it runs. Then after that, you have a 4P or a standard class 4. This one's in an LMS livery, which I'm not sure was actually prototypical for it, but here it is. You can't tell I really like maroon on locomotives, especially the British locomotives. They just look so good in it. Bought these two together on eBay from the same seller. And the third in my maroon trilogy, as I would call it, this is a J94. Now this is actually a modern locomotive made by Hornby. I think they still make it today. And lastly, this is a Bullitt Q1, another favorite of my collection for sure. Oh. I just love the design of this thing. From a distance you might think it's a diesel, but it's a steam engine. Very unique, very cool. And fun fact, this is my most expensive locomotive, so I like to be careful with this one. And last but not least, we have some of my Bachmann, Thomas & Friends locomotives. Just have 3 of these here. So this is Percy. They all run pretty well. Here's a duck. One of my favorite characters from the show. Here's Gordon. Another favorite of mine. Some people might not consider these models, but I do, because they're modeling characters off of the show. So by definition, they are still model trains, they have motors, they run. I personally think they're very nice models. Alright, so those are all of my steam locomotives in my collection. So next we're going to be moving on to diesels. So I now have aligned all of my diesel locomotives, so let's get right into them. Starting off here, we have a very sentimental one. This is a Norfolk Southern F unit, and this was my first locomotive ever. Got it on Christmas Day a few years ago now, of course. And it still runs like a charm. This is a basic Bachmann starter set. See, the horns have fallen off. That's pretty typical for Bachmann diesels. Still looks great considering it's a starter set loco. Then next here, this was my third locomotive ever. Got this one at a train show. Amtrak GP40. You can see there's a horn missing here too, but it's whatever for me. This one also still runs great. Hasn't given me any problems ever. This is a decent Bachmann one. Bachmann, for the money, you can't really go wrong with them. Here's a Model Power Burlington Northern Shunter, or Switcher as we call it in America. Really like the green livery on this. I've been meaning to pick up more Burlington Northern stock. It's a Model Power, so it has a few issues, as Model Powers tend to have, but it runs, still works considering how long I've had it. Here's a very nice one, the Budd RDC car. This is a Proto 1000 series, so I think that's made by Lifelike. This one still runs great, got it at a train show. Just love the livery on this, I love the nice silver. But RDC's very cool. Very glad that there's a lot of these left in preservation. Here's a Walthers locomotive. This is a GP9M. CSX livery. It's my only CSX locomotive. Really like the livery on this one. The nice gray, blue, and yellow. They all mix together very nice. And Walthers, they make great locomotives. So if you can find them at a good price and want one, definitely pick them up. This has never given me any issues. Never. Here's another Bachmann. I don't quite know the class of this one. It's Bethlehem Steel, so it's from Pennsylvania. Don't quite remember how I got this one, but fun fact, it is actually one of the 2 DCC engines that I own. So that's pretty neat. You'll see the other DCC here in a bit. Here's an Alco F1, I believe. Or no, an FA1. Right? I don't know. I always get the classes of this one mixed up because I know there's PA1. I don't know. And this one's very nice. Another Bachmann. Baltimore and Ohio livery. Baltimore and Ohio, another railroad I need to start collecting more for. It's never given me any problems. Runs great. Next we have another Amtrak locomotive. This one you might notice. Extremely similar to the Burlington Northern, and that's because they're the same type of locomotive made by the same company, Model Power. They run about the same as well. This is my first duplicate of a class I already owned. Really like the livery on this one, so that's why I got it. Got it at a train store. Here's my second DCC locomotive. This is a Great Northern Doodle Buggy. Runs great. Again, it is DCC, so don't really have the materials to run it at its fullest potential, but I'd love to get some someday. Another great runner. Here's an older one. This is a Model Power. I know it's some Alco locomotive. I don't quite have the class memorized. This one doesn't run so great. It's pretty old, and it being Model Power definitely doesn't help. Has some wiring issues, I think, because sometimes it runs, sometimes it won't. I definitely need to get this checked out. Here's one of the few in my collection that barely run at all. This is a Walthers Crane diesel. I regret buying this one, to be fair. It's very unreliable. Broke on me pretty much after just like 2 days of owning it. So for $80, not very good. Even when it wasn't broken, it still ran like trash. So if you find one of these at full price, I don't recommend picking it up. Wait for it to go on sale or wait to find it secondhand. If you really want it, that is. Because I will admit, it's a very cool design. And I like the locomotive, but as a model, it's just not that great. Here's another F unit, another duplicate. This is a Seaboard F unit. This one was actually made by Hawthorne Village, or I should say it's painted by Hawthorne Village. Because Hawthorne Village, they just take Bachmann molds and paint over them and produce them. This one's very nice. See, it has that Bachmann horn issue. I actually bought this one with the horn missing, so that wasn't my fault this time around. Nice detail that Hartford Village throws in, so if you can see it, they have crew in there. And my camera doesn't pick it up very well. But they're there. Very nice locomotive this is. It runs like a charm. Here we have my only narrow gauge locomotive. A narrow gauge diesel. It says Plymouth on the front, right? Yeah. So some sort of Plymouth diesel. I don't know why my camera isn't focusing. You can see there. Only narrow gauge thing. Doesn't run that well, and I don't really run it that much anyway. So I kind of gave up on the whole narrow gauge layout. Maybe I'll return to it someday. But I don't intend on selling this one like I did the other, because I do still have a use for it. So those are all my American diesels. So next we have my 3 British diesels. This one's very nice. This is a Lima Class 55 Deltic. I really like this locomotive. I just love the design of it. Love how menacing it looks. Because when you think about these, and how in Britain at least, this was a diesel that proved that diesels were worthwhile and could take over steam engines pretty much and replace them. So I love the name of this, like Deltic, and how just kind of its menacing aura, I guess. It's kind of weird, I know, but that's why I love it so much. Next we have a very similar design. This is a Class 37. This one's in a BR livery, or a BR blue. See, this is an old Hornby model. I'm starting to get a good shot here. Old Hornby model, runs like a charm though. Got this one on eBay and it came with the whole set, so. Very happy with that purchase. Wasn't that expensive, runs beautifully. It's never given me any problems. So we'll put that one back. Sorry for any poor lighting. I'm never good on that kind of stuff. Then my last British diesel. This is a Class 35 High-Mech, another old Hornby. I imagine from around the same era this was, maybe even before. Good chance that this is from like the 70s or the 80s. Could even be the oldest locomotive I own. See, another BR blue. Runs actually pretty decent considering how old it is. So I'm very happy with that one. Got it on eBay. And last but certainly not least again, we have a German diesel. This is a German diesel rail car. Bought it at my local train store. Runs well, it has directional lighting. And it's in that really nice maroon livery that I love so much. Alright. So those are all my diesel locomotives of the collection. So after this, we'll be doing electric locomotives, so stay tuned. Alright, and finally we have the electric locomotives. So let's get right into them. So here's the second locomotive I ever purchased for my collection. It's a Bachmann Brill trolley. Unfortunately, this one doesn't run anymore. It never really ran that good in the first place. And I think I prefer it as a static display piece. Very nice locomotive and very sentimental, obviously. Here's a cool one, Amtrak E60. Bought this one at a train store a few years back. This one runs like a charm. It's honestly great. Love the design of these. I always love the Amtrak livery. Yeah, great. Another Bachmann trolley. This one's a bit more modern. This is a PCC trolley. So I got this one pretty much as a replacement for this one. It was pretty cheap. I think I actually just got it on Amazon for like $35. It was on sale, so pretty good. It's lighted, and it's a pretty cheap model. It's not hyper detailed or anything, but for what I need it to do, it does its job very well. So those are the 3 electric American locomotives. Next we have some locomotives from France actually, and we have 2 of these, 3 kinda. So here's the TGV in its dummy unit. There's actually a whole story behind this. So that my TGV broke, shattered into pieces when I was trying to repair it one day. And then a few years passed and I actually took the motor from that one and put it into the dummy unit, which is where it is right now. So this does actually run despite it breaking. Then a few days later, after that actually, I managed to get all the plastic pieces from the old unit back together. And I kind of shoddily glued them back. You can see there's some big cracks. Maybe I'll fix those up one day, but from certain angles it actually looks pretty good. The only piece I couldn't find is the little like lights that were meant to go there. I don't know where those ended up. That's the TGV. Lovely model. I want to buy a new one of these someday. Because this one I don't like running because it is pretty fragile with all the wiring I had to do. It's not very good, but it does work. There's another French locomotive. I don't actually know the class of this one. This one I bought at a train show. I actually bought it with the Hudson. I said store, pardon me. I did buy it with the New York Hudson at the same place, same time. And this one just kind of stood out to me as an early modeler because I didn't have a lot of electric stuff and I was really into European stuff. Still am. One's pretty decent. It's pretty old. It's a Lima model. I should say this one's a Lima model as well. It still runs great. Alright, here's a more recent locomotive in my collection. This is the ICE train. This is actually from Germany. So we've moved away from France now, and now we're in Germany. This one's great. I got it in the starter set that Pico makes. Got it at the train show. For the right price of $160 about, but I think that's a pretty decent price for everything I got. And the locomotive, basically brand new, so it runs great. It's actually pretty nicely detailed for a starter set loco. So I'm pretty happy with that. Another favorite. Here's another German electric engine. I don't know the class of this one, but I bought it at a train store. This one really stood out to me because it's a, if you can see him, an electric engine with like cylinder rods and stuff, so kind of has the workings of a steam engine despite it being electric. So that one just kind of stood out for me, and it's an all-metal construction. So I don't know how old it is. It's made by Fleischmann, so maybe that's their thing, making metal locomotives. But it's all metal, which is pretty neat. So those are all the electric engines. And one last little bit, kind of bonus here. We have two engines that don't really fall into any of the classes of diesel, steam, electric. So I've just kind of put them at the end here. So this is a Trackmobile. You know, actually I lied earlier when I said that tender engine was my only Pennsylvania Railroad thing. Because this is also in the PRR livery. But I'm not sure if Pennsylvania Railroad actually ever used one of these. I tried to find photos, I couldn't find one, but it's pretty neat. I don't remember who makes this. I think it's Lifelike, maybe? I don't know, I'll have to go back. And here's a pretty interesting piece. This is a Conrail maintenance truck. Only Conrail thing I own, but I really like the blue livery they give these. Doesn't run that great. I can't imagine it ever did. It's probably the smallest locomotive I have, if I could even call it a locomotive, because the motor is just right in here. Always shorts out on points, not very reliable, but it's interesting, wasn't that expensive, so I thought what the heck and just got it. Those are all my electric locomotives and kind of miscellaneous engines. I do want to say something real quick before we end, because there are actually two locomotives that I own that I didn't show off in this video. That's because they're in storage for most of the year, and they really only come out during Christmas time, because they're my F unit, which is in a Christmas livery, and I also have a little hand car with like Santa and an elf on it. So you'll see those when I put together the Christmas layout in just a few months, actually. Alright, well that's going to do it for this year's collection video. Please do tell me in the comments which locomotive was your favorite of all my collection, because then I know which ones I need to show off more in videos. And this year, I decided not to show off my rolling stock in the same video as my locomotives. So if this video gets popular enough and people ask for it, I'll definitely make a rolling stock collection video as well. Well, as for now, that's it from me. I'll see you guys later.